If I sum it down to one word, it's vulnerability. Like if we want to try to tackle, dismantle this idea of being siloed, being individualized, we have to take off our armor. Like to be vulnerable means to be open to being wounded. And we as men really don't like that idea of letting our guard down, of letting people in.
Welcome to Real Men Feel. I'm your host, Andy Grant. Today's conversation is a powerful one. I'm joined by therapist, author, and speaker Ethan Getchell, who brings a deeply personal lens to men's mental health. After losing his younger brother to suicide, Ethan made a bold career shift into mental health counseling. He now focuses on helping young men navigate grief, depression, and the pressure of being a man today. If you've ever felt like you had to act like you've got it all figured out, this episode is for you. And if you're looking for more real talk and connection with like-minded men, check out the Authentic AF community at realmenfeel.org/group. It's a space to be seen, supported, and real. Let's do it. Now, Ethan, I know that your career path into therapy was a deeply personal one. So let's start off. Can you tell me a bit about your brother, Austin?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Ethan. I'm in clinical social work. I'm in a depression and suicide clinic. Before I was doing that, I was on track to go into commercial real estate. And prior to that, I was going to Hope College for business and communication. And it was in my junior year at Hope that my youngest brother, Austin, died by suicide. And that was the first time I was really exposed to the silent suffering that young men go through. So really since that day, I have kind of grown this passion through my own grieving journey, through my own struggles, and then also kind of seeing what Austin went through or not seeing what Austin went through. And that's really driven me to pursue this career path.
And how old was Austin?
He was 16.
And had you had any idea that he was struggling at all?
No. And, in hindsight, it's always 2020. We try to put the dots together and come up with like what could have been happening. Um, I have another brother, Hayden. So there's three of us. I'm the oldest of three brothers. And Hayden and I are very similar, more extroverted, spend more time outside. Austin was a redhead, so he was kind of naturally more introverted, kind of avoided the sun. He liked video games more. So there was kind of that dissonance growing up where we'd be like, hey, let's go outside. He'd be like, no, I want to stay inside. So kind of just like a little natural disposition that we kind of just embraced and kind of let him be. But again, in hindsight, it's like we just wonder, was that a factor? Was he spending too much time alone? Was he spending time online, looking at whatever, like pretty unfiltered, uncontrolled? So we speculate things, but there was no explicit, like, hey, I'm feeling this way, no history of mental health issues. Really kind of your cookie cutter kind of normal guy when you kind of think of one in your head.
Was there a specific moment that you realized you really wanted to be of service and change your career?
Yeah, it was the first thought was like 8, 9 months into my own grieving. So this was my junior year. I finished out the semester. I contemplated going back senior year or taking like a gap year, but really wanted to finish my schooling out. So got started senior year and just like realized how hard it was to like grieve and grow as this new person. Like I was very changed after Austin passed. And so that was the first time that I started going to therapy and wrestling with these hard questions and really fell in love with therapy, which is funny because I was someone that prior to that was like, people don't need therapy. That's not a thing. Like I have friends, family, like you shouldn't need therapy. And then to have that really 180 after Austin passed. And so to have a good experience, to see what Austin was going through, and also as just like a knowledge pursuer, I started reading books. So I read Of Boys and Men by Richard Reeves, and it really just like called to attention. Like Austin's not the only one going through this. This is actually like a really big issue. So I really felt like I wanted to use my strengths and gifts and passions and energy to pursue this head on.
The notion that nobody needs therapy, was that something that was just told to you, or is that just because you didn't see anybody in your environment going to therapy?
Probably a little bit of both. I didn't really see anybody in my community go to therapy. I'm from a really small rural town of like 3,000 people. So it was kind of like either you are okay, you look okay, or you don't talk about it. And so growing up, there was an emphasis on like physical health. And if you were taking care of yourself physically and you looked good, then, that should be a sign that you feel good and your mental health is good. And, I now know that that's silly, but so there was an emphasis on eating healthy and working out, but there was never really explicit talk around like mental health. And there are some new challenges today that my parents didn't face, technology and social communications and things like that. And so there was a lot of unknown. And one of the things we hold on to is like we did the best we could with the information that we had. And we're kind of at this new frontier coming out of pandemic, AI, technology, like all these things are impacting young minds so much. And that's been like a real curiosity of mine.
In regards to your own grieving, what was there something that helped you the most that you would like to share with others?
My life's kind of been a series of like trial and error, and you have to really figure it out. One of those trial and errors was like trying to grieve on my own without help. And that really landed me feeling weak, really landed me like, and there was one moment specifically that like my brother Hayden, who we have a really good relationship, he kind of called me out. He's like, Ethan, you're not leaving your room. Like you're looking a little softer. You're not working out. So really these mental health things had started affecting my physical health pieces. And so when I saw that, I looked in the mirror, I was like, wow, yeah, I can't keep just trying to push through this head on stubbornly and not get help. And so I think that's a piece of grief where I really learned that it's communal and it takes having people around. And one of the themes of all of these things, suicide, grief, success in general, it's about having people around you.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I find time and time again how important community is for the highs and lows of life. Like we're not meant to be isolated beings. What are some of the biggest mental health challenges that you see for young men today?
Oh man, a lot of things aren't changed. So there's still like financial aspirations, sense of purpose. Like I think that's one that's kind of transcends time. It's kind of always been around. But I think these new pieces are more of emotionally connecting with people, relationships. Well, those are still also older issues, but I think the more recent implications and struggles are relationships with technology, and a lot of things are more digital, and it's complicated because like with Austin, he had some of his deepest friendships, but they're people that he played video games together with all day. So it's like you can look at playing video games all day as a negative thing, but then you see the relationships he's building, and that's a positive thing. And so you have this new frontier of relationships in the digital age, vulnerability, pornography, like exposure to things, so many things that, it can be overwhelming.
And why do you think men in particular struggle to seek help to open up around depression or suicidal thoughts?
It's uncomfortable. It's second nature. It's not natural. There are these big messages out there to figure it out yourself, to be very individualized, be siloed. And I think a lot of these really strong messages that are prevalent historically are really getting in the way of people connecting with others.
And in your work, what signals or signs that someone needs support do you see that families and friends are missing?
Sometimes you get overt, very clear signs of depression, anxiety, things like that. Someone's sad, overwhelming thoughts. Sometimes you get that cookie cutter kind of symptom. Other times it's not so clear. You get young guys who are really deeply obsessed with a hobby or a job or a singular relationship or gambling or substance use. And oftentimes it takes more of a covert form where it may not necessarily seem like a bad thing that they're spending all day on video games or they're spending all day working on this project, but it's this idea of like losing balance. And when that one thing is taken away, which is kind of their crutch, holding them up from these typical depression symptoms, the problem is once they lose that thing, then they don't know, they don't have anything else to rely on. And that's when they kind of fall into deeper forms of depression, suicidality, things like that.
I've seen some of your writings. You talk about a new vision for masculinity. What does that look like to you?
I think like if I sum it down to one word, it's vulnerability. Like if we want to try to tackle, dismantle this idea of being siloed, being individualized, we have to take off our armor. Like to be vulnerable means to be open to being wounded. And we as men really don't like that idea of letting our guard down, of letting people in, of potentially getting hurt by people, but it's in that pain, in that vulnerability, in those moments where you allow yourself to possibly get wounded that you connect with people and you build support and you have multiple structures so that if you lose one, it doesn't leave you falling and crashing and burning.
Now, you offer coaching as well as therapy. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit. So I'm primarily at the hospital and but on the side I'll try to help a guy or two if I can, if it fits in my schedule.
And how are those two approaches different?
They're very similar in that I try to show up as a human and just really humanize the experience. Therapy is a little bit different because it's typically higher acuity, it's more structured. People are being referred from their doctors, and they have usually it's a paired with medication management, things like that. So it's more, at least with the practice I'm at, it's more hospitalized. So you're coming in, you have this diagnosis, we're going to treat it with this modality, and we're going to try to help you feel better. With coaching, it's usually like you would imagine coaching in other aspects. So I've been on high school sports teams, things like that. And a coach is really someone to say, hey, you're on this path. You kind of know where you want to get to. You have these hiccups, you have these obstacles. You're looking for a second opinion. You're looking for maybe some structure. You're looking for some feedback, and I can help walk with you and kind of offer that for you. So a little bit of different spin, but essentially, like there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, in my experience, as as a coach, someone that's been coached, as someone that's been in therapy, I found that in therapy it was more listening, where a coach will can like offer more, will actually like push me to take some actions. Perhaps
Yeah.
does that ring true today? Yeah.
Yeah, I heard this metaphor like, and it's kind of a loose metaphor, but therapy is really for that person who's drowning and teaching them how to swim. And coaching is kind of like coming along and helping someone swim faster. So that visual kind of helps me kind of differentiate the two. Like you're not necessarily teaching different things. It's both like the form on how to swim, but it's kind of where that person's at and how you show up in that space. If someone's drowning, you have more life preservers, you have more tools that you're going to provide for that person. If someone already knows how to swim, it's like we're really refining like the details of how you can do it better.
Right. So it's really what level of crisis someone might be in.
Yeah.
What would you say to a young man listening to this conversation who feels hopeless and helpless and that just nobody understands what he's going through?
I really like to give as personal advice as I can, but there are themes in general truths that can help anyone who's kind of struggling with depression, and one of them is just like acknowledging that is the voice of depression that wants you to believe these things. What depression does, what shame does, is really narrows your view so that you can only see one thing, and usually it's a negative thing. So I'm not here to say that that isn't real, that that's not happening, but just to try to help you broaden your view so that you can see, the good things that are in your life along with the really real shitty things that are going on. Can you step back to see like the other things going on? Can you hear that this is coming from shame, from a place of self-criticism? And then, what can we do to, if we can't turn down that voice, how can we turn up the sound of the positive things in your life too?
So I was a very depressed and suicidal kid. I've survived multiple attempts on my life, and like I didn't think I had depression. I thought I was depression,
Mm.
and it wasn't all the time. But I thought normal people were like just happy constantly. Like there was this flat affect of like, yeah, everything's great. Like that was normalcy, and it's not. But people would offer me help, and until it took me a long time to be ready to receive it. So, yeah, how can parents, friends, communities, how can you help someone that like isn't really consciously ready to receive help yet?
I think you have to not be scared of it, and you have to put away what you want for that person. I actually just wrote about this recently. Like, I wrote how to respond to somebody's suicidal ideation, and I talk about like what not to say. It's like don't go into fix it mode. Okay, here's what you need to do. You need to get off your phone. You need to start working out. Da 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 da. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't tell them that everything's gonna be okay, and don't make it about yourself. And I think those first two things underneath it are doing that very thing. You're trying to comfort your own anxieties and fears and worries about this person. In trying to comfort yourself, you're really just getting in the way of actually helping this person. So it's really hard. It's really hard to say, hey, you have to put aside your own thoughts, emotions, upbringings, belief systems that have worked for you to see this person. But ultimately, that's what they need. And another great metaphor that I love is this idea of just like sitting in the mud. Like, can we just be comfortable with sitting in the mud with this person? And who knows how long it takes, but if we get comfortable with sitting in the mud, then it doesn't matter how long it takes because you know that eventually when this person's ready, you'll be there to help them get out and clean off.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just shared. When I was 16, I thought if my friends knew how bad I felt, if they knew how much like darkness and gross shit was in me, they would leave. They would abandon me. So I didn't think I could tell anyone the truth. And so what's proven to help me the most is when I could tell someone how bad I felt, that I was really just thinking about ending my life, and they just stayed. They didn't run away. They didn't shut up. Yeah, they didn't try to fix it. Just like, okay, I hear you. Now what?
Yeah.
Well, like, oh, so that we can say suicide and the
Yeah.
world doesn't end, and that's a myth I run into often. Is people afraid to broach it? Like us talking about it is not going to make anybody act, right? It's all that energy, those thoughts are already there. They just haven't been expressed.
Like in Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore is like one of your representations of like melancholy, depression, whatever. But he still hangs out with the gang. He's still brought along. Like he's still treated as an equal, and he still has this personality the entire duration of the show. But he's able to like walk with that through whatever they're going through and be part of the group still.
So, Ethan, if Austin could see the work that you're doing, what do you think he would say about it?
I think he'd be really proud. I think he'd be really impressed. It's so conflicting because I would do anything to have Austin back. And at the same time, my life would look very different. And I would be happier to have my brother back. But I was going down a career path that was not making me happy either. And so I'm in a much more purpose-led job, and I have a lot of passion towards this. And I think he would be really proud of how I've kind of turned this pain into purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You really seem like a shining example of, the story that there's a gift, and in all of our hardest times, there's a gift, right, waiting to be found and utilized. So yeah, I really commend you in turning that pain into something positive, and you know, I dare say making your entire family proud of you and your friends, everybody.
Yeah. Like
Tell me a little about your book, Things in My Pocket.
that was part of my grieving process too. So part of graduating from undergrad, we had to write this like life review paper, part of the capstone, and kind of like what are different life transitions that you've been through. And at that time, the most prevalent one was the transition of after losing my brother. And so I wrote about that, but I had also previously written other stories. I am a big fan of writing. I write a lot on LinkedIn, but prior to that, I just had a lot of journal entries. And so I was kind of reviewing a lot of different stories that I had written on my computer. And I was just thinking, like, how can I intertwine these? How can I create this red thread? And also at the time, my friend came and stayed with me. And he's a big cyclist. And so he was out riding his bike one day. And I get a call from his sister. He's from Indiana, and his sister's calling me. Like confused. I answer. It's like, Drew's in the ER. He was in a ditch. I don't know if he got hit or if he passed out or what happened, but can you go be with him? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I go there, and he ended up being okay. But while I was just sitting there kind of waiting for him and he was resting, it just got me thinking because they found him unconscious in a ditch, and they pulled out his wallet and they were able to identify him and then call his sister, who called me. And it just got me thinking. I was like, if I was unconscious in a ditch, what would people find in my pockets? And so then I just started thinking about all the things I currently had in my pockets, but then, things I've had in my pockets prior to. And then that was kind of just like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh, this could be a cool way to weave all of these stories throughout my life into this one book. And so that's how I came up with things in my pocket. And really it's a way to practice what I preach. So like, I preach vulnerability and sharing our stories. And so I did just that. I really tried to lean into the uncomfortable stories, the hard times in my life. And it's more just kind of entertaining based, but I hope that people read it and it leaves them in kind of a point of reflection on like their own ways that they can be vulnerable. You don't have to write a book and share with the whole world, but how can we lean into the uncomfortable conversations more?
Is there anything that gives you hope about the movement for men's mental health today?
I think the more that I dive into it on social media and in education, stuff like that, the more I just learn of these amazing people that are doing incredible work and the strides that are being made. Richard Reeves is one, but Jonathan Haidt is another one, the anxious generation. I even like people like Scott Galloway, who are a little bit louder and opinionated, which I think is awesome. And so many incredible clinicians that I've met at the hospital. And so, yeah, I think, and then to also see how they have their own experiences of grief and pain and loss, and how these people have all done incredible things from places of pain. And so it encourages me to know, like, I'm not alone in this either. Like as special and rewarding and purposeful as it is, it's like I'm not trying to do something. I'm not the first person to do this. There are many other people who have done it, and I really look to them as role models.
Ethan, what's one thing you wish more men knew?
It's a good question. I think I wish that they knew what comes to mind is just like that they don't have to have it all together. Like they don't have to be Superman. They don't have to be on 100% of the time. And, I don't think this is a new revelation. I think people figured this out. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people figure this out the hard way. And so, how can you allow yourself to be human and know that you don't have to be perfect? You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, not even that you don't have to. Nobody does.
Yeah.
Like I think that's an entire myth that hurts men, that you can have it all figured out. Alone, especially makes that an impossibility.
Mhm.
But yeah, I find, and this is certainly something I did not see for quite a while, and I was challenged by this growing up. But the more I'm willing to be wrong about things, the more I'm willing to see there's more to learn. Like that used to feel like life just pummeling me. Oh, there's more. Come on. But now I'm like, oh, good, there's more. Right. So if we can appreciate that there's more, appreciate our imperfection, appreciate that we really don't know anything, and that there's more to experiment with, trial and error are all like great things that we can use. And I wish if we could find a way to celebrate that more in the daily experience, especially of young men, instead of going, pick the right major, get the right job, make sure you're right the first thing you try for everything you do. That's just a horrible standard to try to reach for anybody.
Yeah, it's this posture of humility and curiosity and letting the other things kind of fall to the side.
So, Ethan, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
LinkedIn's my main form of social media, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I think I have other social media, but I'm not as active on them. And then I also have a website, so Pro or ethangetchell.com. You can find me on there. And I also have a newsletter on Substack.
We'll be sure to have links to all those resources in the show notes for the episode. Ethan, I really want to thank you for how you are choosing to lead your life and to support other people in making their best lives as well.
Thank you. Thanks for creating this space and allowing me to share some of my story. I think this podcast and spaces like this are amazing.
Big thanks to Ethan Getchell for sharing his heart, his story, and his mission to make emotional vulnerability a strength, not a weakness, for men everywhere. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, leave a review, and most importantly, take the next step for yourself. You don't have to do this alone. Join us in the Authentic AF community for honest conversations, meaningful support, and brotherhood. Visit realmenfeel.org/group to learn more. And until next time, be good to yourself.